everyone, and welcome to another daily objective. And our objective today is try to break down the now viral video by conservative commentator Tomi Lahren. So Tomi had a Facebook Live yesterday, which has already more than 1.5 million views, where she's basically giving advice to men on how to be better men. And there are many things to break down here, and we're going to do it together with Gloria, and we're looking forward to it. So where to begin? So the first thing that captures the attention is, and many people are thinking, is that if someone who is obviously very pretty and has many things going on for her, like Tomi Lahren, if she has problems finding a good man, then basically society is in big trouble. So she openly talks about that. She mentions, and I quote, the pussification of the US society and of the West, which basically mean that men are not men anymore. So how does she plan to fix this? She fixes this by giving a list of things that men should do so they can date women up to the value, as she says, of herself and her friends, because she claims that this is almost a universal problem. And now, two things very quickly before we go down to her video. The first thing is, it's interesting that whenever a man would make such a list, and we saw it on Twitter with Zubi, for example, some months ago, or last year, a fitness guy called Juan Antonio Cortez made a similar list, and they got into trouble. Cortez even made it to the mainstream media, like, how dare someone give a list on how women should be so that they are, let's say, dateable to men. So the first interesting thing is that it's completely okay to say that, yeah, but there is a list for men because you men are basically, quote again, pussified and you're not good enough. So interesting point to keep in mind. The second interesting point that I want Gloria's kind of take on that, but I would predict that any woman who creates a list for a man, any man that needs that list, she would not date that man. So she would want someone who wouldn't need this list to be, quote, good enough for her. So I'm not even sure what the point of this list is. So what do you think, Gloria?
Thank you so much, Nikos. I'm actually very excited that we chose this topic. I went all over the world with my WhatsApp to ask my friends, my female friends, which I have diversity of. That was one of the things that one of them mentioned, Maria Blanco, author of Aphrodite Unveiled. She's a defender of libertarian feminism. And she said, well, it seems to me that this girl only has like one type of friend, and she's very specific about it. Like, she talks about my friends and myself. We are women to be taken seriously versus the Tatianas. And when she mentions the Tatianas, what comes into my mind is like these Eastern European Russian girls that sometimes go to the US with no purpose whatsoever but to find a husband. I actually met a couple of them when I lived in DC, and that was their goal. They were there for 6 months to find a husband. But hey, if that's your goal and you're being straightforward at it, what's the problem with it? So none of my friends were completely in agreement to what Tori points out in this video, but there were a lot of disagreements. First of all, the fact that men can be as assholes as women allow them to be. So at the end, is our call when to stop certain behavior. Second of all, there's a lot of ignoring red flags. Like, if you engage in this type of communication that is not constant, as she describes, is because you also take part of that. How do I know that? Because I have friends, and myself as well, who have been involved in those particular dynamics. And sometimes it's because you as a woman are not sure enough why you want a relationship in the first place. So making a list of saying these are the things that you need to do in order to be with a woman like myself and my friends is talking from one generality to another generalization. I have another friend, Cecilia. She lives with her boyfriend, but her boyfriend was previously in another relationship. He has a teenage son that lives with her. So she tells me, by the standard of this girl, I could not be with my guy because he has a past. He will always have a past. He will always have to engage with his ex-wife and the mother of his kid. So it's a standard that it's very narrowing and limiting. I had another friend that said that from that list, she's generalizing what women want. Some women don't care if you're married, if you're a widow, if you're not single as she portrays, you know, like she says that the first rule is that you need to be single, not with 5 Tatianas, not with a former ex-girlfriend. No, you have to be single. And some of my friends pointed out, who says that all women in the world are interested in a single guy? Now, that is different from what objectivism, you know, will portray as a healthy relationship, the selfish path to romance, and so on. And one of the core arguments at the end was, look, what we are having in the 21st century is a crisis of honesty. There is evidence all over the world that people are not being honest from day one into what they want. So yes, there is a lot of mixed signals. There's a lot of people saying I love you when they really don't mean it. There's a lot of people who just want to live in your cell phone, but they don't want to engage in a 3-dimensional relationship with you. But that is not because men are becoming assholes and women are, you know, perfect and intelligent and whatever. It's because people are not being honest into what they really want.
Or they don't even know what they want. And that's the thing. So, and the other thing is, we are in a society that doesn't want commitment in anything. And like, I'm guilty. I'm like the most commitment phobic guy ever. Probably that's why, you know, I'll be eternally alone, but that doesn't matter. So here's the thing though, when you have trouble understanding what you want, right? And when society tells you, oh, you know, there's also this thing kind of, which is polyamorous, which is now it's cool. Again, whoever wants to do this, more power to you. But today, what does it even mean to be single? Like with social media, with Tinder, and specifically with women of, you know, who have a lot of options and they're bombarded by, you know, DMs by so many guys, or guys who have a lot of options. There's a lot of debate in the so-called dating economy that there's like a 20% of guys, and these guys kind of get almost all of the women and all that stuff. So there's a lot to unpack there. But someone today being completely single, as he says, is something very, very difficult. Just one short correction. She didn't say Tatiana, she said thought Tianas, which is basically a combination of thought, which means that hoe over there. Again, whenever we're cursing today, we're just saying what Tomi says. It's not our fault. So she kind of combines the name thought with Tatiana. Anyway, point number 2, make plans, which is the one that I have the most objections with. So what Tomi says there is basically, don't give me booty calls. She says, I go back at home at night, I take off my makeup, I don't want messages like that. Here's my objection. My objection is, I think here Tomi talks about guys that she's not really into. When you're really into a guy or a woman, it doesn't matter if it's 1 o'clock at night. You are so bursting with passion. And let me read one of my favorite scenes in Atlas Shrugged, a very short scene. It's Francisco and Dagny, they've just started dating. Quote, that winter, Francisco came to see her in New York at unpredictable intervals. He would fly down from Cleveland without warning, twice a week, or he would vanish for months. And then Dagny thinks, he always came to her unexpectedly, and she liked it because it made him a continuous presence in her life, like the ray of a hidden light that would hit her at any moment. And this could be also the other way around. In Fountainhead, we have Dominic visiting Rourke without a plan. So what I'm saying is, real passion and real desire cannot be made of a plan. When you're really, really crazy about someone and you really want someone, you don't need the plans. So my suspicion is that here she's talking about this kind of guy that she's not really that into, but she will date because whatever reasons, or because she needs to, you know, a good conservative girl needs to find a guy. What's your take on the make plans point?
The current problem is reciprocity, and there is a crisis of emotional unavailability. Maybe it is more portrayed in like heterosexual men, But I also see it in gay couples. My male friends, like they have a hard time into getting into a committed monogamous relationship. So let's say that men in general will have more issue with commitment. Okay, fine. Then heterosexual women are always in this constant struggle of, when it's passionate and you love that guy and he calls you at 3 a.m., you rush into it. But then if there's no reciprocity, you suffer because you feel that you're giving a lot, and that guy, actually, when you give it too easy to him, then he backs off. But again, it's a problem of lack of honesty. It's a problem of just saying, look, I don't know if I am in love with you. I don't want to, tell you things that I really don't feel, but I don't want to scare you away. Why don't we just like hang out? And most women that I know, if you go straight forward and say, this is what I can offer, then they can take it or leave it. But the problem is that with this, when you really like a guy and when you are really into that guy and you give a lot of your time, when you don't find that reciprocity, then you suffer because you're conscious that you're giving a lot. So there's like this amazing book that I recommend to anyone and everybody interested in. It's a neuroscience study. It was made to more than 18,000 women of all the different continents and all the different backgrounds. And it's why women have sex. So it starts with the things, a list of what actually women find attractive in a guy, but from a point of evolutionary psychology, not from like the list of standards that Tomi's mentioning, that it's important for them, but also the different type of scenarios where women engage in sex, and not necessarily is because of full passion. That's just like one scenario. But sometimes women give sex to guys because they feel guilty for them or because they want to take something out of them. So sex has been used as a bargain and negotiation chip, which I think it's sad because most women, for the recent history, didn't know how to enjoy or how to even choose a partner in their life. So we're struggling still with that. And I do understand, like, when I saw that list, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's healthy to put limits. It's healthy to put boundaries, but you know it immediately. You can really feel if someone is having reciprocity with you or not. And I don't know if we can just put the list to share.
Sure. Today we're gonna go a bit longer, but who cares? It's an interesting topic, so we can go longer.
Let's do that. So this is the summary
for you one more time in case you are just tuning in. Number 1, are you single? No, really. 2, make plans. We don't want a pen pal. 3, value someone who has value. Consistency. Be consistent. Don't be great and then fade out. And then don't fade out and then think that you're going to fade back in, because it ain't going to work. And last but not least, if all else fails, don't be a bitch. Hope you guys have all enjoyed my PSA, my Instagram Live. I love you all. Hope I gave you some valuable tips and advice.
So yeah, that's that don't be a bitch when everything goes wrong, which, if you go through this list and you know a dishonest person, a person that has contradictions, that is what's going to happen. There are going to be emotionally unavailable guys that will do the impossible for you to fall in love with them. And they are engaged in the eternal pursuit of romance. They are in love with love. They are in love with the image of you from afar. There was a movie called Alfie. It's from the 60s, and then they did the remake with Jude Law. And the character of Sienna Miller, he says, she's like a beautiful sculpture. When you look her from afar, she looks so beautiful, so pretty. But once you get close, you start seeing the cracks. And that's what I don't like. So yes, there is a crisis. I've seen it all over, like with my friends that are from different backgrounds, from different, like even interests in life, where there are men that once you become real, they run off. It doesn't matter how hot, how young, how intelligent you are. It's not a matter of what you can bring to the table. It's a matter of the eternal pursuit of romantic love for the sake of love, not for building something with someone. So that is a thing, and it's real. But as a woman, you cannot rant off saying, oh, there's nothing else to do. Because as another friend of mine said, Andrea, she said, well, in the first place, why are women looking for a relationship? She told me, like, why is this thing that women, they can be as intelligent, as smart, as sexy, but they still feel empty unless there's a man by her side. So they will conform with anybody, even if they treat them with poor standards. So there is that. And then there's another thing in psychology. And Neil Strauss, he was one of the masters of seduction. In his recent book, The Truth, where he goes in a long path talking about relationships, there is a toxic relationship that gets built in between a narcissistic personality, that's like, unrational selfishness, people that will, not only their selfishness, but they will go against people's self-esteem in order to pursue their own goals, and they lie, and an empath person. So a narcissist and an empath, they both feed each other demons, and you can be in this kind of toxic relationships for years and never get into like a safe port or a safe ending. So I do believe that what we have is lack of honesty, people that don't want, as you said, Nikos, look inside and be honest to say, what am I looking for? What do I really want? And then, of course, they lie, they cheat, they say things that are not completely true. But as I always say to my female friends, for an abuser to exist, there has also to be someone that lets that abuse happen. Although, if not, it doesn't happen. And I'm not talking even about physical abuse. I have encountered marvelous men who would never cut the wings of a woman, who would never say to a woman, you have to study this or you cannot do that, but that manipulate her into a point where they say, you will never get something as good as me. So even if I don't offer you the standards that you want, you better stay with me. And then
but at the same time though, a woman would, any man would want to be with someone who you think that you couldn't get anything better than. So it's what also we see the dynamic in the Ayn Rand novels of admiration, that you look with admiration someone. But you mentioned Neil Strauss, and Neil Strauss became famous with the game, which brings us to one of the main points of Tomi, which was that there are no men anymore. So she talks about, at the end says, don't be a bitch. At the beginning, she talks about the pussification of the US. So here's the point though. Society today is basically mocking men who try to somehow understand what is masculinity. So for example, they say, oh, you try too hard, which is weird because we never say to someone you try too hard, let's say to be a good sprinter, but let's say to build a character and to build these traits that traditionally would say masculine traits. Somehow, you either have it or you don't. Or people who, God forbid, try to learn some social skills to talk to women, immediately they take the label incel, all that stuff. And I think one of the reasons why this video became viral is because Tomi Lahren is the dream of every traditional conservative. Obviously she's very pretty. And now these guys are disappointed. And these guys are gonna rush to the MGTOW narrative, which we criticized in a previous episode. And they're gonna say, even Tomi Lahren is not like this dreamy girl that would think running, with a dress with flowers. So basically the point here is have no illusions. And I think she has a point. You have to build a character first and be a man of character. And then you can deal with the romantic stuff. But the problem is that society today makes fun of men who try to gain these attributes that Tomi Lahren, who is a conservative and openly says, I want, a traditionally masculine man, and suddenly she says she can't find them. And one more topic, and you're going to comment in all these and have the final say, but beautiful women, my prediction is there is an army of good guys who are on the friend zone. So there's this kind of weird balance, right? that a lot of the guys that Tomi Lahren wants are probably somewhere in the friend zone. And she doesn't really want someone who will just say, oh, look, Tomi, I followed the list. Now, will you date me? Anyway, comments.
No, absolutely correct. And that's why I recommend the new book of Neil Strauss, because 10 years after, he talks about the nihilism that he and his friends lived, of this constant pursuit of women and just conquering and having sex, and that it ended in no point. So even guys that say, oh, like women like Tomi, that's the goal to have. If you're only on the constant pursuit, you're also gonna find yourself miserable, because at the end, we are here in this world to make human connection. And if we have the balls of going inside of ourselves and getting to know each other, checking our premises, we will build stronger relationships. If it's with our families, with our friends, with our loved ones. If not, we're just, like following whatever the society tells us to. So that's why I recommend that. What you're talking about, like friend zoning the good guys, whereas pursuing the bad ones, is something that sadly is biologically engineered in us. And we have to fight it, not fight it, but I think we have to come to peace to it. There's an interesting chapter in this book where it talks about like the perfect equilibrium in between the good guy that maybe won't offer the, a higher adrenaline experiences and good sexual chemistry, and the bad guy that will make psychologically your life miserable, but that will give you those highs. And that's something that comes from the time of the caverns, and a thing of having satisfaction, but having also someone that will ensure the survival of the offspring. So it's really interesting how maternity, individuality, and sexuality play all a role at the same time in a woman's psyche in order to choose a partner. And it's also common knowledge when they say to you, every woman has to have her share of assholes until she really appreciates the good guy. In reality, what I have in my different friends, I do have female friends that say, I was done with assholes, and that's why I'm with this good guy. Am I super in love? No, but I'm in a happy, stable relationship. And I have other friends that keep on being single because they like those rushes of adrenaline. Not because you are in a relationship, it means that you found bliss. There are a lot of people in relationships because they are scared to be alone. And there are a lot of people in relationships because they did come to peace into what they were looking for. At the same time, not all single people are lonely. One thing is to be alone, and another thing is to be lonely. And I think the crisis of what's happening with women, even myself included in different parts of my life, is that sometimes the pressure of outside is like, wow, what if I don't find a man? Am I gonna be alone? And then you realize, okay, if I'm gonna be alone, I better be at peace with who I am and invest in myself. And I think that what's going on is, it doesn't matter how many beautiful, smart, go-getter women are out there, they still feel incomplete unless there's a man by their side. And that's something that I think the philosophy of objectivism nurtures a lot in order to have that individuality. And I will finish with this, and it was an advice that I gave to a friend that is younger than me when I was starting my 30s and she was beginning her 20s. And she said to me, I don't know what to do. I have an offer to go and live with this guy who was 15 years older than her boyfriend, or I can go and do my master's degree in Barcelona. What would you do in my shoes? And I said to her, well, listen, now that I'm 30 and I look back, if you go, like most of the women in Latin America do at 22, 23, live with the guy, get married, have kids, when you hit 30, you are gonna have the crisis of, oh my God, I didn't travel, I didn't study, I didn't fool around, I'm now 30 and there's no turning back. But if you do what I did, that it's like, finding scholarships, study abroad, travel, have friends, fool around, when the 30s hit, you're gonna be like, oh my God, I don't have a family, I don't have a guy, what's going on? So doesn't matter what you do as a woman, you are going to have those questions in the back of your head when you hit the 30s. So the only answer that I have is do what you want to do. Not what Tori or Tommy says, not what your grandma says, not what mom says, but what feels right for you. Rationalize that, get to know yourself, and expect reciprocity. I think that we deserve to ask what we're willing to give in a table, not more, not less.
My last point would be trying to, I think there is a way to explain why women go quote for the bad boys, and a rational way to explain it. So basically the average person today is constantly invited to conform, group think, put the same thing on your social media, do the same thing. So the moment someone goes a bit outside of this, the moment someone pursues his own values, right, then suddenly he looks like the bad boys. So I salute, in a way, women who go for, quote, bad boys, because quite often these bad boys are the independent thinkers and the individualists, so to speak. So, today, again, the topic was, we're not claiming that we, this is objectivism in action, but I think there is a way to see all these things within a rational way of understanding the world, right? Because again, people go after values, and people admire people who go after values. So if you see the guy who at the center of his life is he's pursuing his dreams passionately, not just, I go to work, weekend, yay. No, someone who passionately go after his values, then it's easier to fall for this guy, or vice versa, to fall for a woman who is passionate and, she inspires you to be your best. And at the end of the day, that's romance. Romance is you have values and you see them mirrored somewhere else. If you don't have strong values, you're not going to see them mirrored anyone else. You're going to be confused and sad and do booty calls, which sex is not even great. So yeah, it should be the real thing. Go for the real thing. And that's the message of the show for tonight.
Just one last thing. There is a crisis of masculinity because men don't know if it's okay to be a gentleman anymore. Like they question, should I open the door? Should I not open the door? Should I give flowers? Should I not give flowers? Should I call? Should I not call? And I think that's horrible because we cannot expect security if we're constantly bombarding the way of being masculine. And there are millions of ways to be a gentleman. So pursue them. Don't be afraid of that. The only real rule is respect others and be truthful. That's it. That's it. If you go with those standards through life, you're not going to hurt anyone, or at least if you hurt them, it's not going to last as a long suffering because there's honesty involved. And one last thing is, the other day I ordered food and it came with a card that said, when all of this is over, who is going to get your first kiss? And I was like, wow, what an interesting question, because during all the quarantine, I've been single as I never been since I was like 18 years old and lost my virginity. Like this time for me has been for myself more than anything in my life. And one of the standards of talking about the values that I will take on from this moment is, for me, I will admire someone that can tell me how they lived this quarantine. What did they get out of this quarantine? Tell me how you lived this quarantine, and I will be able to grab some of the values and the things that you constructed through this time. And I think this is a really good opportunity for everybody to look within and then have better, signals to what they're looking at.
Yeah, that was a great point. Like the quarantine as basically making yourself understand. By the way, dear producer, at some point we should do something like romance after the quarantine, and it would be a good show. Anyway, we're way past time, but who cares? We broke one of Tommy's point. We didn't make plans. We went off schedule, but who cares? It was good fun. So bye everyone, and see you soon. Thank you, Gloria. Bye-bye.
Ciao.